Hey there, Tom Powell with the Founders Office, and joining me today is a wonderful guest that was up with us in Lake Tahoe, Betsy, and do I say it properly? Westhaver.
Correct. That's exactly
It
right.
is. Oh, yay. Okay, great. Well, thanks for joining us here today. While we're waiting for my other co-host and possibly two co-hosts joining us, Candace is coming on shortly, and Jackie, who is also one of our founders, is stuck in an airport with all this wonderful mess of changing things. Ooh, look at your background. It changed. I like this new background.
Thank you. We are
Very fancy.
we're in my bedroom today because there's a small human that may come in at any point because school's closed today.
That's right. We are having a storm that is snowing up on the mountain. And so everything has been discombobulated, right? It's a life of a founder, right? Well, Betsy, as a founder, you joined us up at Lake Tahoe this week at our awesome. I think it was an awesome event. Anyway, tell me what your thoughts were. What's your takeaway?
100% agree. It was awesome. Just the connections, the people that were in the room were just like off the charts amazing people, which is, I think, one of the biggest takeaways for me was just the people I got to meet. And we've continued connecting since we all got home, which has been amazing. I think I've had 3 conversations already with people that I met at the event. But also just the information and how you guys in such a great confidence building way share your knowledge of all the experience that you have. It was such a gift to be attending and in the room.
Well, thank you. And you were one of our special speakers also, right? Helping to build Congruity, which happens to be a name of your enterprise, right? Why don't you talk
Correct.
about Congruity and what does that mean and where is that for founders? And more so, you work with a lot of bigger companies that aren't just necessarily founder led anymore, but you help align the companies with their clients and more so with the world in general, I think, to whatever they're working on. We've worked on some pretty cool projects that you've told me about. Yeah.
Yeah, so even though they may not be founder led, most of them are capital backed. So it's a lot about building that valuation and just making sure that they are in alignment with the market, which is where the name Congruity came from when we started the company almost 11 years ago. So really the work we do is all about helping senior leaders, executive suites really understand that they need to validate their assumptions rather than just go on their internal conviction on what they think they need to do. And doing that by engaging with their best customers, the executive decision makers of their best customers, and understanding what their strategies are so that they can align and go down that path together rather than just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks. Because as we all know, that's not usually a good strategy.
No, and you know what I love about it is in writing the 6 C's of capital, which we really didn't discuss much while we were up at the Capital Line, Capital Edge Summit. I have to remember the name. We have all these names floating around. So the first word is clarity, and the second one is alignment. And that's where you guys really come in both providing that clarity, but you do it, I think, a little bit separately. You don't have the clarity first, you have the clarity through asking questions and having your executive team of those companies hear what the people actually are out in the field saying. You shared with me some marvelous stories of where people realized that they were heading in the wrong direction because the customers already knew they were heading in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah, one of the things I like to say is that the customers already have the answers to your questions. You just have to ask. And they like being asked. There's a lot of value to them having some influence on the direction of a strategic partner. There's a lot of value to customers being brought together in a room with their peers and being able to have people that are going through the same challenges and struggles. And that's a value add for the host company that brings them together beyond the products and services they sell. So it is a lot about just taking the time to operationalize a listening methodology at the highest levels of the organizations that they serve.
So we've talked about in brainstorming different areas that we see applications for this in the venture capital group. So we're capital, we've got a number of companies out there. If we bring these into our companies, that benefits us as the capital because the companies are going to grow bigger, better, faster, be more aligned with their clients, and that may actually lead to joint ventures, exits, all the various things, right?
Correct, correct. And one of the things that we talked about last week was just where revenue leaks out without even being noticed because it hides in success. So for example, we talked about the founder's dilemma. And that's where there's that what got them where they are. They were so confident and they ran with it and they knew what they were doing. But as they get more and more success, it gets harder and harder for them to step back and question what's been working. And that's like that real precipice where things can start going south without them even recognizing it. And so being aware that that's something that can happen with confidence versus validating strategies. And that's where if they go down a certain path, it may be working, but it might work better this way. And there might be a whole bunch of revenue left on the table because they just didn't ask the customers.
Well, Candace, we have real world examples with the founder's isolation paradox. That's not even just a one person isolated. And we're looking at exiting a company right now that is absolutely the scenario.
Yeah, there's like this, we see this a lot. There is kind of, especially if you're a founder or your business has seen kind of rapid like success and growth, then there's this plateau and stagnation. And that's actually when we see a lot of that isolation coming in because the growth has stalled. Things are working enough. That's the hardest part, is when things are working enough. And I think a lot of times founders come to us thinking that the problem is money, that if they just got a little bit more capital in the door to fix this one item or just in a little capital infusion would make everything go away. And I think you're touching on a much deeper issue that's really important to, an organization's growth.
Yeah, that brings up that whole scenario that they think oftentimes that the capital is the answer to solving the next level of problem. And when we start digging into it, the first thing we find out is generally the capital they've already brought in, whether it's their own capital or outside investors or bank financing, it's not even aligned with where they're trying to go. So it's like trying to build, we use Jenga as an example. So the base of the Jenga system, they've already pulled the pieces out from the bottom. So no matter what we do at the top, that piece is going to collapse, right? Scenario. So that is an interesting talk.
Money doesn't fix bad habits. So
No.
when you have something maybe structurally or like what you're speaking about, Betsy, if you have misalignment there, money's not going to necessarily fix that. In many cases, what we've seen is capital can actually make it worse. It really highlight how big of a challenge this is. It can lead to regulatory challenges, to really significant structural challenges for the organization, potential litigation. So getting that is such a critical piece to growth outside of just getting capital. And we're not saying that that's the solution instead of capital. We're saying they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and money can make bad assumptions worse as well.
Yes.
Oh, I love Bill Gates years ago in his Speed of Thought book. And he said, technology does not improve bad systems. It just speeds up bad outcomes. And oftentimes that's what money does too, right? It just speeds up bad outcomes. So you pour the money on the fire. They've already built a bad process. They've built bad assumptions. They haven't gotten that aligned. The money doesn't even match the challenge that they're trying to solve. And so all it does is just make a big mess. And usually that's an unwind scenario, and people pull off the technology and go build the new company, right? Well, Betsy, I know you're a lot of your clients, you're on NDA, so you can't even tell us some of the most amazing companies that you've worked with. I've had a little inside view at different times of some of those people, but can you tell me some wins, and more so, can you tell me some near losses, keeping it a little bit private for the guests and the clients in the world? But I mean, this is real world stories. This isn't someone hypothetical. By the way, I'm going to take a side here. I'm reading my LinkedIn today because there were some posts and some comments I needed to respond to. And I'm reading of some of these people that are out there claiming to know the capital raising space. and they're just regurgitating what already the people that have actually been in the space, have done it, built companies, and they know the pitfalls. They've actually been there. These people are regurgitating it as though they're experts. So the reason I say that is because Betsy's not regurgitating someone else's story. Betsy is regurgitating or retelling us a story of what's really happened within some wins and losses within that space, of getting them in congruity.
Yeah, thanks for the chance to talk about this. And I will be very careful not to disclose more than I am supposed to. But I will tell you that one of my favorite stories, I've got a bunch of stories, but one of my favorite ones is where it was a near loss of a huge multi-million-dollar customer. And they invited the CEO to a customer advisory board meeting. And at the end of the meeting, the guest went up to the chief commercial officer of my client and said, you know, you don't know this, but we've spent the last year getting ready to move away from you. We're in the middle of a 3-year contract. We have not been happy. We feel like you don't care about us. And we've been talking to your competitors, and we've got our plan in motion to move away from you when our contract is up. He said, but after being invited to this dialogue with my peers, with your leadership team, under NDA, understanding your strategy, hearing what's coming that my competitors don't know about, and just having a chance to create a little bit of influence on the way you're thinking. He said, we're done with that. We're going to renew our contract with you right now. We're going to make it a 3-year deal, and we're going to throw on our international business as well, which was a huge win. But then what happened after that, he became such an advocate that he referred another customer over in the UK. That retailer became a top 20 customer very quickly for our client. And so the ROI of having that conversation, and the basis of it was they assumed everything was fine with that company, and it was not fine. And either they assumed it, or the person on the field who knew there were problems didn't filter that information up to the people that could do something about it. So there's a lot to be said too for the executives getting involved, because they will get that direct input versus the game of telephone where it filters up, and by the time it gets up to anybody that can do something about a situation like that, the message is all distorted and they don't know what's real.
And generally, you're getting not just senior executives, oftentimes you're getting the most senior executives in that room. You require that as part of the program in many cases, right? They've got to be able to hear this feedback.
Correct. We only deal with C-suite executive, different forms, either customer advisory boards, roundtables, think tanks, that kind of thing, because that's where things can really dramatically change for the better, is if you've got the people that have the power to make those changes.
But oftentimes,
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
well, I was going to say, oftentimes, like kind of what you said, as these companies, and we see it all the time, as these companies are scaling and growing, the founder who used to have a really kind of maybe more direct line of access to the end user, the customer, the vendors, all of the parties that make this happen, they've gotten now so far removed. And a lot of times we see it a lot if they're in a capital raise, because when you're raising capital, raising capital is almost your full-time job. It is your full-time job, and you're trying to still manage the business. You're now so far removed from that end user. How do you bring that back?
Yeah, it just has to be an intentional effort. And we view it as a strategic initiative. It's built into the strategy and roadmap of the company, that you operationalize the executive team getting very intimately involved at the customer level so that they know what's real, and can have those kinds of strategic conversations that the people on the boots on the ground don't get to have. And then also pulling out a lot of information that they wouldn't give up necessarily at the user level.
No, it's fascinating because as I'm listening to you, it's making me rethink or just brainstorm on the founder's isolation paradox. So again, being a doctor in this theory world, we have to name shit. So right. And so here's the founder, and they've grown a company. We find this oftentimes at about 10 million. It's not a magic number by any means, but they've grown to this $10 million level, and they're sitting there. They've got a beginning of a C team. There's been C-suite creep. where it used to be you had a CEO and then nobody else was a C. Now you have like 15 different Cs in these companies that only have 14 employees. But you've got this C-suite kind of building over here, and they're not actually necessarily aligned with where the founder is best protected. Then you've got the spouse in many cases who helped them start the company. It could be a significant other, could be whatever type scenario, it could be a co-founder, but generally somebody there that's not quite as active in the company. Then they've got outside counsel, outside accountants, and all of these people are here. And then at 2 a.m., the founder is still isolated, making the decisions on their own. And they don't have a full picture. They've got the most full picture of everything, but everybody else are making these things because they're not actually all talking together and keeping it aligned. And that's where the founder's advocate and what we talk about is being able to back that founder. But in our model, what we're also missing still in that deal is we haven't brought the customer into that model. We're used to having the investors as part of that conversation because the investors over here with their own model, but you've got also the customers over here. The end product user that drives the revenue needs to be part of that conversation as well in the overall founder's advocate.
Well, and you bring up a really good point about the executive team, and we also work on the alignment there as well, because the CMO will see something differently than the CFO, that will see something different than the CEO, and so then they get all disjointed, and they're not all flying from the same songbook sometimes. Or I think I mixed my metaphor there, but so we have a process to help make sure that internal executive team is aligned, not just with the market, but with each other.
Well, and where you're working is generally your companies are past the $10 million revenue mark and even past the 100 million. That's where they start coming in to be your kind of client. But I see this space because what's happening is that board right now, the board is usually friends of the founder or their early investors, and their direction is to grow the company and get an exit. The management group, for lack of a better, the C-suite is there, and oftentimes the founder's still taking the CEO role, which is probably a total misalignment as it is. They don't have the skills necessarily to be the CEO, yet they want that title. That's partly why they did this. So they're in that role, but they don't even take off their hat between founder, which is a shareholder, and a visionary, versus the CEO, who is the manager, the chief manager of the organization, right? So none of these pieces are there. By the time a company gets to 100 million, those roles are a little bit better aligned. The founder's risk is usually off the table. They've been exited, or they've got different things that get aligned better in there, or they've put the right team around them. But in that 25, and especially in that $10 million range, that management group is driven to actually put the founder at more risk, because they're all compensated when it grows and expands. And so they're fine if the founder is going to sign a personal guarantee with the bank because they need a bigger warehouse line, right? They don't care well, they do probably care to some level, but they don't really think about that the founder and their spouse may lose everything that they have in sake for growing that company. That everybody else is betting a paycheck, they're betting everything that they have, right?
Yeah, it gives me chills to think about.
Well, because all of us have been there, right? Everybody in this room has all been there.
We've also been taken a board seat, with our investment, and we've come in as maybe a more mature board member to a board that was maybe, like you said, from the get-go, a friends and family round. Some members took seats on the board. They may not have the level of experience, the level of expertise to be able to be in an advisory position that can grow the organization. They may have been exactly right for that period in time. And so a lot of those positions do need to grow as the organizations are expanding. So I think we see it a lot because of where we come in as far as our capital goes. We often are part of that transition.
And to add on to that, Candace, thinking about when a founder or an executive team can go to their board and say, this is what we propose to do because it has been validated with our customers. then it gives them a higher level of maturity with the board and more board confidence, more investor confidence, because they have had those conversations. They do know what's real versus basing what they want to move forward with on assumptions. So I'm glad you brought that into the boardroom as well, the board of directors, not just the customer board of advisors.
This works for nonprofits too. It was really interesting. I got interviewed for a group that we've written some checks to over the last year and a half. And so they asked me to get interviewed by them and find out some information. And the people know my background. I don't sit on the board for them. But all of a sudden there's this alignment. And it's like, I've sat on nonprofit boards for the last 30 years of my life. And that brings a lot of, and at any time I'm sitting on 2, 3, 4 boards of nonprofit scenarios, now usually trying to keep it down to 2. And that's been national and international and just very local boards. And most recently, because of that, where they're asking me questions like, you don't even know what you have in your alignment to grow, I came back out and I said, I'm going to pull out an old workbook of what the board makeup is. And then I'm going to ask what this newest board actually needs. And then I'm going to list each of the board members and see what gaps we have. That is like basic board management 101. However, it's almost never implemented both at the nonprofit and the for-profit level until you get to a larger level. And people call it DEI, but it's not about DEI from a diversity of that standpoint. It's a diversity of, do we have the right people on the board, right? Do we have the right thought processes? Do we have outside inputs? Where are we going from this standpoint? Which leads me to another thing. You got to meet a friend of ours, a new friend of ours, Chris Jarvis.
Yeah.
What animal are you?
I was an elephant.
An elephant. Ooh, Candace?
I'm an eagle.
I'm an eagle too.
I know. Because we just test the same on everything.
As your wicked stepmother says.
Except our last
one.
Our last one was different.
That is true. What was your not animal? What are you sacrificing for your top animal? That's the most important one.
Mm-hmm.
You remember?
Fun.
I was fun too. Yeah. So that was what, the monkey?
You guys are monkey. I was health.
Health. Okay. So if you don't know what we're talking about, it's the giraffe. And Chris Jarvis, Be the Giraffe. He's got a number of books out there. He's on his way right now to Antarctica, talking about being a giraffe. But a great guy that was also one of our speakers there. Another one was Gary Sanchez. So we gave out these free, you got up there and you gave the discussion on the congruity. Gary Sanchez got up and he talked about why OS, the Y operating system, right? So where are you on Ys? I know this already.
Better way.
Better way, yep.
Simplify and clarity, I think.
Clarity. Okay, Candace, do you remember yours?
Yes, I am challenge.
Oh no, I'm challenged. That was my third.
You are? Okay, I'm challenge is my why, meaning yes, I probably am a challenge, but also I want to challenge like how things typically are done. The joke around here is that I have multiple slides in my home because stairs are boring. Better way and contribute. So what, like at the end of the day, I want to contribute.
So for those two, for Chris Jarvis's as well as for Gary Sanchez's, both of those are available by emailing our team, and we can get you the links. We've got a negotiated price with them, or we'll eat the fee and get you guys those QR codes. So just reach out to our team at Founders Office. And then Betsy, how does someone find out more about the Congruity Group? You've got a podcast, you've got books, you've got all these different opportunities to be able to be working with you. How does somebody do that?
Yeah, best way is reaching out via LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. And then we do have a podcast called the Really Know Your Customer podcast. All C-suite conversations about customer engagement. And then 2 books that can be found on Amazon if you just search for my name.
Oh, that's awesome. And who's your ideal customer? Who's the best group that you serve at this point?
You know, when people ask me that, I don't go with numbers, I go with psychographics. It's somebody that's open-minded, it can take feedback from customers, know that it's all for the betterment of the organization, and beyond that, willing to take action on it. But having
Psychographics, is
said
this
that,
something like psychograph? Is that like a mushroom thing that you take, or what is?
that's a psychedelic.
Your daughter was on here talking about psychographics, a handful of
I
episodes
know.
ago.
The good Dr. Catherine Ann Powell Hinnitz, as I like to say.
I talked to Dr. Katie today.
Oh, you do? I don't get to talk to her very often. I
Yeah,
need to
no,
bring her on
I
here to
talked to
be a
her
guest.
yesterday and today, so.
Tell her we say hi.
I
No,
will.
wave from afar. She's so famous and worldly now. We never get to talk to her. So,
We have some
Candace,
questions for you
I was going
guys.
to say, do we have any questions?
We have quite a few questions for you guys. Yeah, and keep them coming in the chat, although we may not be able to get to all of them. Hang on, let me sift back to the top. Betsy, you talked about revenue leaks hiding in success. Can you expand on that? What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, again, it kind of goes back to when things are working really well, that a lot of times there's just like this mental barrier against rocking the boat, or don't fix it if it's not broken kind of thing. And that's where, if your customers have more information to give to you and you don't seek it out, you could be leaving a lot of money behind. Also, the competition can be speeding past you, even though things are going well. Your competition can be out in front by hearing from the customers directly. And so again, you can still be really successful and have that revenue leaking without you even knowing it.
And you help them see it, but more so, if I understand closely, you not only help them recognize it, you get the customer involved in helping to solve it. Meaning
Correct.
they want it solved. They don't want it leaking out either.
Mhm.
Which is,
Right.
I think fascinating, is beautiful.
Well, and there's such a, I'm sorry, Candace, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's such a huge cost for people at the levels we're talking about. There's usually a big cost to switch providers. The customers don't want the nightmare. It's like changing your phone company and getting a new upgraded phone. It's just a lot of time that they don't want to spend. And so if they can help their part or their vendor be on the right path, that's good for everybody. And so you get the customers involved in helping solve that. And really the customers become an extension of your team, which creates loyalty and retention and expansion and advocacy and all the good things.
So that changes an entire focus point, or at least again how I'm hearing it. I was on a call with another great guy today, Lee Brower, and we were talking about being promoters versus being marketers, within that scenario. And a lot of times, for people to understand that, if they look at their customers, the people they serve, as people they serve, and they're actually bringing benefit, this is not just a transaction. It's something that has a benefit to both parties within there. And in that, the other party wants you to succeed too. It's not something that you're sneakily trying to figure out, how do we milk the most out of that client? It's actually, how do we provide them the most value that helps improve their lives or help solve whatever problem they're trying to get solved. And they want us to do more of that because they've already established this relationship.
And that's where co-innovation comes in. When you get your customers co-innovating with you, and either on business model or product or marketing. A meeting a couple of weeks ago, they showed the customers a new marketing video and it didn't land. And so they got this really good feedback. I mean, it was great, but it just didn't hit the mark exactly. So they got this feedback, but the customers really want them to be able to tell their story well, because they've built up so much loyalty. So there are all these different ways that you can co-innovate with your customers.
Oh, that's super cool. Hey, Candace, before you get to the next question, I saw a question pop up about how does someone, and maybe Mike can put that in here, either the QR codes or tell us how do they actually get the Be the Giraffe and the Y operating system, and then also how do they get in touch with Betsy? We'll make sure that gets out to everybody if it's not clear in this webinar. I don't actually know how that works. I'm surrounded by people that make me look good.
No, I don't either. But Mike did respond. We will, as we produce these and put them back out there. Oh, look at Mike. He's got the
Ah,
Oh, upload your pitch deck. By the way, next
wow.
week we are gonna have our first live one here. Betsy, you got to watch people make pitches up at the front of the desk, right? They had to pay $1. They get up there, they give us the presentation. We find out if they can do their bulletproof speech in 28 seconds or less. They get immediate feedback on that, and they improved along that line as they were going through there. And then they got to do their presentations over the 3 days, and we saw them improve dramatically through that. We're doing that live next week for some brave soul that has uploaded their deck and they wanted feedback live here. And we encourage anybody else that wants to do that. We're happy to do it in this scenario. And then, the 16-week sprint cohort is part of our founders office program. We've got that. The Discover Your Why, that's Gary's. And then we need to also get up there for the other ones.
Yes.
There we go.
Thank you though for getting that up
Mike.
so fast. That was amazing.
That was amazing.
Appreciate it. Good work, team. This is having a good team behind you. There's a number of questions, but I jumped down the list, so I'm sorry because we're not going to get to all of them. But this one kind of goes off of what you were talking about, Betsy. What's the first clue that leadership has been become disconnected from the customer?
Bamboozled, we call it. We've been bamboozled. No, it's by ourselves.
it's when revenue growth starts slowing down and they don't know why. And then there might be some internal discourse where different departments are blaming each other for it, and it starts to get a little frictiony within the C-suite. But really it's when revenue starts to stall that you realize something's going on, that we're not still on the same trajectory or even better trajectory.
That's awesome.
Dad, there's one question targeted for you. You brought up the concept of founders advocate. What does advocacy look like? We've got a board, we've got investors, we have a team. I'm thinking this person is like, well, aren't they my advocate? They have competing priorities. So can you dive into that? That's a great one.
So it's a great question. So show in of itself, but in law, when they take the oath to be a legal servant to the people they serve, lawyers are supposed to be zealous advocates for their clients. And zealous advocates does not always mean, hey, we're going to take them down the road and we're going to win at all costs. That's not what it is. They're supposed to be giving them advice. What I have found in many cases, they don't even know what the definition of that means, right? Because the compensation packages for many of the law firms are set up to actually put them in an adversarial role with their own clients. And I know many attorneys would argue with me about that, but believe me, it's something that we studied immensely on compensation of agency out there, agency roles. So what we created and do our best at being is more like a Seneca role. So if you go back and you look at history, what Seneca wanted to be able to do is always speak truth to power. So it wasn't telling, and trust me, they had one of the hardest people to ever speak truth to power, which was Nero. Going through that and saying, okay, you are not accurate in where you think this is going. I'm going to stay involved because I'm going to give you guidance on this scenario without regards to me losing my mansions or my wealth. Right. And that's the hardest part to do. So where the board comes in is the board has all their self-serving. They need to have they work for generally the shareholders. And so, recently we saw a scenario where corporations were bending to the will of public government because if they didn't, they might not be able to get a merger. And other people are saying, hey, they shouldn't have done that as the company. But if they didn't do that as a company, the shareholders would go up and revolt if they ended up being put out of business or not being able to get that financially there, right? Doesn't make it right. It means, okay, how do you do this? And how do you make sure that all of the players are actually knowing the rules of engagement? So there's a lot bigger piece in there. What we do specifically for the founder is we help get them aligned with their teams. And most importantly, when we go in, so we don't take the place of their attorneys, even though we are a group of legal minded people with different, different people that have law licenses in different states. And we have MBAs and we have all of the 3 letters that you want on a name or 2 letters across a name. It's we come in, it's like, okay, we work with your accountants. We work with your attorneys to make sure you as the founder are having the right information to make a decision as a founder, because you as the founder are not the company. And as you grow, more and more people are focused on the company and less people are focused on the founder. And that's where founders advocacy comes in. And by the way, much of the time who we protect founders from is themselves. So we bring that.
That's true.
Right.
I think this last week up in Tahoe, we do these a few times a year. We do a 3-day kind of intensive in Tahoe. We're looking at other places, but I'll tell you, you're going to be hard pressed to get me somewhere else. I think Betsy would agree.
Yeah.
100%.
It was pretty magical.
It really was.
30 days intensive, and what we realized is how many of these founders unknowingly found themselves on, as you say, the chessboard. And a lot of times it was they were the advisors around them. And it's not because it's bad advice, it's because it's how it's typically done. The system is constantly wanting to put founders on the board and keep them there till they get to a certain level. And it's difficult to actually extract yourself as much as you can.
We had a call just earlier today. You weren't on the call, but it's someone you know well, and they had put their license at risk by signing on to another enterprise. And in that case, they're not getting paid relative to the amount of risk that they actually did. And it's causing them other, potential challenges, including getting loans and other pieces in there. And it's like, that wasn't even what the call was about. That was oh, by the way, we did this. It's like, okay, we need to meet and have a conversation about that. The chessboard is very real. And the difference is that employees get to stay off the chessboard, and generally their risk is they lose their job, and which is painful and horrible and not what we want to do at all. They may lose their career. They have a difference of but that founder many times has put everything, their lives, their fortunes, their family, their health on that chessboard. And part of being the advocate is how do we get them off that chessboard?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
We're there.
I hope that
We're at the top
answered.
of the
Yes, we try to keep this at 40 minutes. So we are at 37 minutes. My power stayed on the whole time. That's a win.
Very good. I'm in San Francisco, by the way. I think I mentioned that I'm at the Grand Hyatt here at the airport because I have an early flight tomorrow morning, but I'm here for the Urban Land Institute, which is one of our passions. We love all the things real estate that we've done over the years. Obviously one of the things that I did, because my thesis is based on this, is how we bring middle income workforce housing solutions throughout the world. Including now in Jamaica, which is something that we want to be able to reach out to and say, how do we get that housing reestablished back there?
Wait, did you go to
Urban Land
conference
Institute? Yeah, honey.
I didn't know that. You sent it to me, and I was like, I want to go, but I can't.
I know you couldn't go, but I did, and I'm actually down here for my Harvard alumni as much as anything else. So one of my favorite professors is doing an event tonight, so I'll be down here, and then I have to fly out, and you can see all the back stuff going in there. But it is part of the fun of being a founder and being traveling around, even though it seems like I sleep in hotels more than I sleep in my homes. Which is sometimes fun. But Betsy, you actually got to come out and stay at our cabin for a couple days.
I did. It was the whole trip was magical. So
then so you got to stay at our cabin, and then you stayed in. You had a great week. You had in Napa, then you were in our cabin at Tahoe, then you were at our house down the little ranch down in Reno, and then you were up at the Lake Tahoe thing. So you stayed with that whole West Coast thing for about a week, I think, altogether.
A week and a half. Yeah.
Week and a half.
Yeah, I was gone 11 days. Yeah. Yeah,
it was
awesome. It was really, it was an amazing trip, and I'm still kind of buzzing from it.
Oh, cool.
And then home in time for birthday party.
And Halloween. Yeah.
And Halloween party and birthday party.
Barely got home in time for that, but yes.
Was it a grandbaby's birthday party?
Yeah, my 8-year-old grandson's birthday is on Halloween, so there was
Oh, nice.
so much sugar in that kid, and he was wound up and so excited. So it was fun,
That's so awesome.
really
Well,
fun.
thank you for taking time to visit us out there and for sharing
Yeah,
your
thank you
wisdom up on
guys.
stage and here as well. We really appreciate it. Please get in touch with Betsy. I got to tell you, there's so many different thoughts of where this is applicable, even in things that we're looking at for board of advisors for universities and for other opportunities with venture capital of how they can use that to maximize their returns. Just a brilliant, brilliant mind and a great framework and process of how to get that out there. So Betsy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. It was so good to see you guys.
And
Thank you.
join us next week where we take our first on this Lunch and Learn scenario, not our first time, but our first time live through Lunch and Learn, a real deck and a real presentation, and it will be fun.
And hats
So
off to the brave people that stood up there in front of the crowd and did that, because that had to be so nerve-wracking. And it was really amazing to see the founders just take that leap.
yeah, it
There
was
was
great.
3 days of that type of work, and it was, I mean, the growth in 3 days
Oh
was
yeah, it's amazing.
it was
Well, and
it
I
was
don't
so
think I
much
was Simon
fun.
at I don't think I was Simon at all. I think I was very kind and
You've
loving and
softened as you've gotten older.
all right. Thanks. Join us again. Foundersoffice.com. Put your deck through. We'll be happy to get you on here. Betsy, thanks for joining us and everybody have a great week. Take care.